I'd like to welcome everybody to the August 12th, 2025 Public Safety Meeting. I'd like to go ahead and call the meeting to order. Do I have a motion to accept the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Do I have a motion for the approval of the May 13th, 2025 meeting minutes?
So moved. Yes.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Nobody signed up for citizen comments. Now we'll go on to ordinances and resolution. Reading of ordinance 2025-15, an ordinance amending Title 4, Chapter 3, Section 4304 of the Hendersonville Municipal Code, approving a pay criteria for lateral transfers within the public safety departments. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, for discussion. Jesse, would you like to talk about this?
Sure.
Or
So the city doesn't have a formally adopted lateral transfer policy. And what happens with both police and fire is if a new recruit comes in, they can be with PD up to a year before they're out on the street by themselves because of all the training that's required. With fire department, they've recently done an in-house academy. So we're going to be able to turn firefighters around much quicker. It's probably impractical to do the academy in-house for police. And so there are agencies who will say, if you've worked at another agency as a certified law enforcement officer, we'll give you some credit for pay when you come to our agency. Like if you've done 10 years at another agency, you can come here and get some sort of maybe 5 years of credit or 6 years of credit as pay so that they can recruit certified officers in. And when they do that, they don't have to just rely on uncertified officers because they have more folks who are certified who want to come in or have an incentive to come in. And so with the kind of change in police and fire's ability to recruit, we thought this was a good move to adopt a policy where folks who maybe work at another agency and would want to come to this agency but wouldn't want to start all the way back down at the bottom of the pay scale could at least get some credit for their prior years of service as a certified officer. And from the city's perspective, we wouldn't have to rely on just new recruits where we have to take them through almost a year of training through the cost of the academy and just the cost of their salary for a year while they're not out in the field by themselves. They're either in training or they're riding with another police officer, so they're not in their own car. So this would formally solidify a policy that says if you worked at another agency for 10 years as a certified officer, you can get half credit to start for your pay when you come in to the city of Hendersonville. So if we've had a certified officer in the city of Hendersonville that started and they have 5 years as a certified officer, someone who's worked at another agency for 10 years could come in and be at the same as someone who's done 5 years at our agency. So it's basically a 2-to-1 ratio. This wouldn't impact a department's seniority or anything anything that's outside of pay. So that would be up to the chiefs on whether they want to allow their prior years of service to impact their seniority as far as scheduling goes. That's not what this ordinance is about. This is just about recognizing prior years of service to help with recruitment for police and fire. And largely it'll probably benefit police more than fire because I don't think lateral transfers are as popular in the fire world. In the police world, absolutely. So I think we've even had some folks talking about going to other agencies who allow lateral transfers because they know they can go there and get credit for their years of service to the city. So they're starting at a higher pay at another agency. So I think this is just another tool to help us recruit and get both police and fire on the street faster when we have a vacancy.
how do you feel about this, Chief Jones?
I feel very good about it. We actually, in coordination with HR and Mr. Eckenroth, we've been doing this for a while anyway and recognizing their prior service. And I think it's helped us to attract some officers that have quite a bit of experience with other agencies who have, for whatever reason, decided they want to come work for Hendersonville Police Department. So,
why would it not be a 1-to-1 ratio?
Well, I think for the folks who, I think there's a sense of the folks who have worked here at our agency for 10 years. They're probably, they know our city.
Mhm.
There's a sense of loyalty that they've been there. So I think if you bring an outsider in who's never been there and they get to start the same day as someone who's been there 10 years serving the city, I don't know that would go real well with the existing officers. But yet the 2-to-1 ratio is probably still enough of an incentive to someone's going to come. They still understand that they get 5 years of what they get to match, at least half to one.
Okay. Well, that makes sense.
Yeah, and it could go higher. It could go higher. That's a discussion that this board can have, but it seems like is much more than we do now. And there are some instances like Chief Jones talked where we're struggling to get positions. We'll have some of those informal agreements, but we don't have anything formalized where we can advertise it when we push out, advertising to say, hey, we'll recognize lateral transfers. Now, if we're, with police, we've been struggling to get folks in. So if they've come in as a certified officer and they said, hey, we have 8 years, we really want to start at a step 3 or 4, we might have those negotiations, but it's not an official policy that we go out and we advertise.
Okay.
Do you have any thoughts?
I've shared some pros and cons. I do have some reservations about it. It can be a morale buster. If you take somebody, and I don't really want to get into entities or talk about other cities or other departments or anything like that, but there's a lot that should come into play with that, right? You could take somebody in that has not met the minimum of our 350 to 400 hours of training, that's been on the job somewhere else, that maybe doesn't have the experience, even though they've been on the job, they may not have the experience, or been in a department that's geared towards developing them. And you're going to allow that individual to come in for a 2-to-1 split as far as time goes. And they would come in potentially higher than a 3-year person that is well on their way to our career path and what it looks like for us. So I think it could kill morale if it's not managed appropriately. I would only be on board with it for entry-level positions only. You're going to kill succession planning if you allow it to happen from any spot other than the ground floor, in my perspective. So I do have some reservations about it.
On that thought, I know on the police side, they said it would only be officer level, correct? So firefighter level. How do y'all feel?
Since it's entry level in both departments, I think it's a good policy to have. It establishes what it is. We can advertise it, help recruitment.
And one thing we were specific about in here is it doesn't entitle an employee who served at another agency to get that credit. That's completely up to the chiefs. If they don't like maybe the training, if they're not comfortable with that, if they're not comfortable with bringing them into their environment, that this doesn't entitle someone coming from somewhere else to have lateral pay. We're very clear in that this does not confer any right. It doesn't obligate the city to do that. But it does give the chiefs the ability to do that if they think it's best for their department.
So if he had a really good qualified person and then somebody else that wanted to make a lateral whose training wasn't up to the standard, he doesn't have to hire or even offer them.
No, it's meant to give the chiefs the flexibility.
The discretion.
And when I'm sure that when we're at 95% capacity with PD, they're not really going to be as interested in lateral transfers. When they're at 15 below capacity, they're going to be more interested in lateral transfers. So that, I think this just gives us a tool that we can use. We don't have to. It's at the discretion of the chiefs if they think it's best for their department.
Any more discussion?
I agree. I think it's a good tool to be able to use for entry-level positions with the fire and police. I like the flexibility that the chiefs will have.
Do you want to make a motion?
I will make a motion to recommend this to Bowman.
With a
Positive approval.
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Moves to Bowman with a positive recommendation. Next, we have other agenda items, UTV on public highways.
So the mayor had asked me to bring this to the Public Safety Committee. This was a change in the law of the state of Tennessee has allowed low-speed vehicles and medium-speed vehicles for the past several years. And what that does is it kind of started with the golf carts that have been modified to be able to meet the requirements under the state law to be utilized on public highway or public streets within neighborhoods. So they actually have about 5 different classes. They have low-speed vehicles, medium-speed vehicles, class 1 and class 2 vehicles. And the class 1 and 2 is really different, so we didn't really get into that in this discussion. But the change to the public chapter, they were including UTVs in the LSV and MSV vehicle statute. And what it does is it just says if you have a vehicle that meets the qualifications, and it's broken down for y'all by a chart here of what they have to be in each category. Basically, the low-speed vehicle is less than 35 miles per hour. The medium-speed vehicles are less than 40 miles per hour, the roads they can be on. The max speed of a low-speed vehicle, even though it may be capable of doing more, they're only allowed to travel at 25 miles an hour, which is why they're restricted pretty much to residential streets. They can cross a major roadway if they cross at a 90-degree angle only. Medium-speed vehicles are limited to a max speed of 35 miles an hour, which opens up more roads. What this public chapter has done has said that all low speed, medium speed, and UTVs that meet all these requirements are allowed to travel on any roadway that's less than 45 miles per hour or less, except for restricted access highways. So a lot of the UTVs, some of the side-by-sides they sell now and stuff, those are actually capable of doing 65, 70 miles an hour, but they're not allowed to be on like the bypass because it's a controlled access highway. It means they could drive on Main Street because the speed limit is 45 miles per hour on Main Street. All of the roadways in the city, with the exception of the bypass, are 45 miles per hour or less. So they would be able to travel on them if they met all the other requirements, which means they have to have all the same things that a motor vehicle has on it. They have to have a horn, they have to have turn signals, they have to have tail lights, headlights, seat belts. Under certain conditions with a medium speed vehicle and a UTV, if they don't have an enclosed cage or a windshield, they have to wear a helmet. So they've got a lot of restrictions on it. The only thing they said is that municipalities can enter their own restrictions if they so choose. We have not ever enacted any kind of legislation or restrictions on low speed or medium speed. I don't know that we would be accomplishing anything by putting them on the UTVs. We don't see them that often anyway. Here in town, you're going to see that more in a rural setting, but it just opens it up a little bit and kind of adds some additional vehicles to this classification. But the ones that we've seen, the UTVs, they have headlights, they have taillights, turn signals, windshields. A lot of them have enclosed cabs on them. And so, but the one thing we've kind of had this issue in some of the neighborhoods, it has to be a licensed driver. It has to be a person 16 years of age or older with a valid Tennessee driver's license, and they have to have motor vehicle insurance. So, you know, the problems that we have had have not been with the ones that are road legal anyway. It's the ones that have underage folks driving them around in the
Neighborhood golf carts.
Right. And they don't even meet the requirements of this. The vehicle itself doesn't, much less the people driving it. And so as far as us, this part of the law, we've not had any issues with that here in Hendersonville. The issues we've had are the ones that are completely illegal anyway.
Where would a riding lawnmower fall in this?
You know, they are not restricted. They are not restricted.
They aren't
Okay.
my house.
Well, they could be. At your house.
In my yard, Don.
Uh-huh.
Come onto my yard.
Okay.
So this just lays out what the restrictions are, the prohibited areas. if the city was ever to decide to enact any kind of legislation, it has to go through BOMA, and we have to notify the Tennessee Department of Public Safety and the legislature that we're enacting that legislation. So
Which would be more strict than this, or
the only thing, I guess it would be, the only thing that you can enact that would change anything is if you disallow them on certain streets within the municipality. You can't prohibit them completely, but you could say they can't be on Main Street, or they can't be, and we've had the question come to us. So there's actually a class of vehicle that's not in any of these, and some of y'all may have seen them, and they're called like a racer, and it looks more like
Or
a
the slingshot things?
Yeah, well, those are considered like motorcycles,
okay.
but the other one is more like a dune buggy, for lack of a better term. And those are, as long as they meet all of the Tennessee Department of Safety requirements, they're legal as a vehicle on the highway. So, they're not strictly for off-road. So, and there's some exemptions, but really none of the exemptions that apply to this would apply here in town for the most part, because we don't have very much farmland or rural use areas here. So
So are you recommending at this time that we don't do any legislation and just, you're
I'm not
good
making a
enough with what
recommendation.
we have?
Yeah, I mean, if you're I'm just bringing this out, that's the new law. The new public chapter that's going into effect is going to add UTVs into that class of vehicles.
Mr. Chairman. So that's exactly what I asked Chief to do, is you're going to be seeing more of these on the streets because of state legislation. I didn't want y'all to be surprised at that. I wanted y'all to know the possibility, know what the likelihood is, and also know the possibilities. I don't have a preference on what you do. I don't have a proposal, but I just want to throw this out there if y'all want to think about something and just be apprised. That's it.
Can we revisit this in a few months and see if you're having more
Absolutely.
issues, if the issues are slowing down? I know my ward has a lot of issues with it. I know the police have been on a lot. I don't know if it's slowed down, sped up, what's happened with it.
We haven't been getting as many complaints. We did a concerted effort to hit as many neighborhoods as possible. And as opposed to starting off strictly with enforcement, I think we wrote a few citations, but what we were doing initially was stopping them, calling their parents to the scene, talking to the parents. I know one of them they stopped. It was a 14-year-old driver, and they had like 6 more people on the vehicle hanging off various parts of it. And we
Did
made the
some
parents come
education.
get the video, right? And so we talked to a lot of parents, and that seems to have helped, because we did let them know that we were going to start citing them and citing the parents as well as the juvenile if it continued.
Have you had to cite anybody since you did all of that?
Again, I think we issued a few on the front end just because it required a citation. I mean, it was enough that it needed a citation, but we have not been getting the complaints, and I know the officers are still kind of keeping an eye out for it. I don't know that school starting back may have had a little something to do with that, but we just haven't received as many complaints. But we'll address it and again, most of those, they're not the ones that are legal in the first place. Even the vehicles are not legal in the first place. So
What would a citation for too many people on a vehicle like that look like?
unlawful operation or reckless endangerment, it could be fairly serious.
Does anyone remember Officer Joe Claiborne?
I do.
Mhm.
Okay. He found me one day.
Mhm.
I'll never forget the guy.
Anybody else have any discussion on this?
No.
Okay. Next, we will go on to the updated report for overtime for fire. This came about last year after first Station 7 came on board. We met with some numbers and we asked to revisit that a year after Fire Station 7 has been open. So that's what we will be looking at today, is just going over that data. So, do you want to lead the discussion, or?
Sure. Yeah, this was about a year ago when the committee asked us to track the data for the year. So this is a year's worth of data that we tracked since Fire Station 7 has been opened. So in coordination with Chief Bush and Ms. Val works for IT, So she is an awesome data analyst and takes all the information from the timesheets that HFD produces, and then she's put them into these spreadsheets where we can visually see the graphics on staffing numbers. So this is just, as the committee asked for, this is a year of the staffing. And then at the very end, there is a one page where I just did a summary of total overtime hours that were worked during the June to May period. And then I factored in basically like a scheduling factor, and then said how many people would you have to take 100% of those overtime hours away. And so that number down there is you'd have to have 3.71. You obviously can't have 0.71 of a person, and you will never eliminate overtime. Like there's always going to be overtime, but this was just a way that says how many hours do we have in overtime? How many hours does a person work per year in the fire department? How many of those people would it take to match the hours we had in overtime? But, like this week we have a road construction project going on where we have limited access. So we're having to stage guys in a fire engine. There's always training operations. So the expectation that we could hire to get completely away from overtime is unrealistic, but this just gives us at least a point of what it would take in terms of man hours to cover the overtime hours we had for the year. So I'll let Val kind of explain. She put the data together so she can walk through how these graphs were made. The graphs that look like this, unfortunately, the page number goes down here, so there's not a page number on here, but they are all stamped with the date, and then there's page numbers on these pie graphs too. So
Yeah, which I don't actually have your version of that, so I won't be able to reference the page numbers. I apologize if there's a specific month or date or graph that you're interested in. But yeah, so initially I started working with fire. We had paper time sheets. We worked on that for a while, and then they implemented their time tracking software, which was amazing. And so now I'm able to actually extract out of that software. I actually get the time entries of up to the minute how the individuals are working their shifts, when they do their shift swaps, where they go, all of the training entries. So I receive every time entry that's entered into that time tracking system and included in my spreadsheet. Just as a point of reference, I was curious. And so at this point now, I have 16,750 individual time entry records that I have to represent that year worth of data. It's all gathered up together. And so, yeah, so I load that data in. I'm not necessarily sure what kinds of information you guys discuss on a regular basis, what facts, because it's a lot, right? So I'm taking the time that's been worked by all staff individuals, and I'm tracking on those sheets that represent the individual effort. Now you'll notice, I think most of you that have it open are looking at the same sheet, which is
July.
Yeah, the July, and it's the bar graph that goes vertical, and it shows you every day of that. So is this the first time everyone's looking at this, or has this been discussed in previous meetings?
Okay. I don't think.
But it's the first time it's being discussed as a
We haven't
full
seen it
group?
before this back.
Yeah.
Okay, just making sure. I wasn't sure if you had seen it prior. So what this graph is going to represent for you, you'll notice there's dark blue bars, and those dark blue bars that go vertical, they are on each individual day represent the number of individuals and hours worked on that day to staff the apparatus. There is then next to each bar on each day represents the defined perfect day, meaning how many individuals are available to be scheduled based on that given shift. Right, so that light blue bar represents that. I have set up the system to be able to show over time. We can always show however many individuals were scheduled or available to be scheduled at any point in times. This represents that July number for each individual day based on A, B, and C shift. And then you'll notice there is a purple bar. That purple bar, so this represents what's necessary to run the day. There are 29 individuals which are necessary to actually, at a minimum, run the day of the shift, including the 2 command persons necessary. If there's an incident, they have to run the show, is my understanding, right? So that's what that bar represents, the minimum number to actually staff all of the department, all of the stations. And then the lower bar, which I think is looks kind of red orange, that bar represents the, like, and Chief Bush, if I say this incorrectly, I apologize. The minimum number required to, like, at a minimum, this is what's necessary to run the apparatus and be legal, right? So that's not what it takes to actually run the department, right? So that's what that number, I think, if I'm saying it correctly, represents, that to have all the apparatus staffed.
That would assume that a division chief and a battalion chief would hop on a piece of equipment, which we don't do, right? So 27, because we have 9 pieces of equipment, but we don't run a battalion chief or division chief on equipment. So that's why the 29 number is there. That's really the number that for operations is
What it
a
takes.
better number to look at.
Yeah. So I believe that's what that represents and how many individuals were available, and that reflects it. That was for you. Yeah. Are there questions about that sheet?
So in July, we were on the 18th. We were short.
Yeah, so normally if we get into the granular data on that, it may have been that a guy showed up an hour late. That's very rare in those circumstances where I think the fire department does a really good job of making sure that those numbers are at 29. Sometimes if someone's, car breaks down, they show up an hour late, they leave a shift an hour early, it'll just drop it for maybe the last hour of the day or the beginning hour of the day.
So that's why it's 28.9.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, anytime that you see a number below 29, I would say it's probably something that happened, that somebody had to leave. And it's easier to not fill that for an hour, right? By the time you called somebody,
Than to
they
have
got
somebody
dressed,
come
got
in.
to work, it's gonna be shift change, or they're back. Like if they had to leave for a family emergency, we would just send an engine with a truck to do that. We don't like to do that, but for an hour, we'll manage that. Versus trying to call somebody to try to round them up to come in and work overtime.
Okay.
So if you see something below 29, it's typically going to be, as Mr. Eckenroth said, somebody had a car trouble, they woke up late, would still be punitive damage for them on the backside of that if they're late. But with that being said, it could be they're at work and they leave at 7 o'clock at night. We had a guy just a little while ago, this kid was involved in an accident and he had to leave. So we had to get overtime to backfill that. And we have to wait, right? It might just be a period of 30, 40 minutes for that person to get here that we drop below that number.
But those are reflected in the timesheet. So Ms. Val does plug them in, and that's why you'll see something
Right.
like that from time to time.
On the Chief Bush, on that apparatus support requirement, that line, where does that number come from? From state law or from the people that make the equipment? Or
No, we don't meet the NFPA recommendations. NFPA recommendations are 4 per piece of equipment. That's their minimum staffing. I think I've shared with you guys before, you take a residential fire, they want, for your ISO purposes, they want at least 18 people on a fire ground. If we only have 3 staff per piece of equipment, you have to send more equipment. So let's just say if you were to have a house fire in zone 1 and then had another house fire in zone 6, you're probably going to have to reach out to a local agency to help come support that for you to have enough people on the operational fire ground. Otherwise, your ISO, because ISO, when they come in, they don't evaluate you on your medical responses. They evaluate you only on your fire calls. And if you do not have adequate staffing, then it starts affecting your ISO rating.
okay.
And I mean, there's been tons of studies. I can be glad some of you guys may not have that. I can resend that back out. It talks about you take a strip mall, you take a multifamily dwelling, an apartment complex that constitutes a larger response. Matter of fact, if I'm remembering correctly, that NFPA recommendation says if it's a strip mall or a multifamily like an apartment complex, they want like 42 people. So on a normal day, we would not meet the recommendations for that.
Okay.
And we still go and do what we can do, right? But let's take the deal in Massachusetts where there was 10 people that just passed away in a fire, and there was not adequate staffing to do enough rescues. And so there's a big hubbub about that if you pay attention to that. And so there's a big push for requiring 4 people per piece of equipment,
Okay.
which I know costs money.
But this is based on 3. So
Three.
This is,
Correct.
This is
This is
based,
based
on
on
3.
three.
That's correct.
Have we ever had 2 fires at the same time in the city?
It's happened, in my 10 years as being chief, maybe 3 times. But again, we're an insurance policy, just like anything else really in public safety is. If it happens, that you've got an adequate response ready to deal with it.
Mhm.
Do you want to talk about this?
Sure.
Can I ask a question, just clarification on this? So the top part, the bar part is just talking about persons. You're not
Correct.
talking about the hours for those persons.
Correct.
Hours come into play with the pie charts.
Correct.
A little bit misleading.
And the persons are calculated based on a 24-hour shift day. So it is fundamentally a calculation from the hours. Yes.
When we're fully staffed, we have 37 per shift. That's our max number, 37 on all 3 shifts. We have 111 people in suppression. And you see the 35, I'm looking at December, I don't have July in front of me. Yeah, that's what everybody's kind of looking to. I can at least speak to that. If you look at that, I'm not sure, I guess this is all shifts. You'll see 36, 36, 35, 36, 36, 35. You see a consistency there. That means 2 shifts had 36 people, where we had 1 vacancy. The third day is where they have 2 vacancies. They don't have 37 people to pull from. So that in turn reduces the opportunity for days off. That in turn reduces the opportunities for schools. It has an overall effect on what we do day to day.
I have a question. I don't know if I'm thinking about this the right way, Chief Bush. Sorry.
No, it's
but
okay.
I'm not sure if I'm thinking about this the right way, but this is how many people are available to provide the service. But
That is correct.
should
The
we
way
know like what the response time is? Because that's the level of service. So is that impacted when we have dips?
well, with our report that
Or
we
do
put
we
out,
have anything that correlates how many people are on staff to our response times, which is our level of service?
yeah, so it's factored in the annual report that we came out with this year has all that in detail. It shows our turnout times, it shows our response time, and then you're supposed to have a certain amount of apparatus and people on the
What I'm
fire.
saying is, do we know if that response time fluctuates when we have fewer people working?
I would say it's not affected because it doesn't matter if we have the minimum staffing, which seems like we have a
They
lot.
still
of
drive as fast.
Right, yeah, the turnout time is still expected, the response time is still expected, et cetera.
And the reason that we showed the light blue, because that's what's available for staffing, what's scheduled for the day against the dark blue, is that we can't assume, because it takes 29 people, we can't just have 29 on the schedule.
Yeah.
Because you have vacation, sick, all those things. So you can see we have 36 on the schedule, but on day 1, we have 29 show up, meaning we absorb 7 people with vacation and sick and FMLA, but we have to have those extra staff built in because you're going to have people sick, vacation, and all those. So that's what the light blue is for, just to show you we're absorbing all that, but you have to staff in excess of what you need because those folks are not going to be there every day.
Okay, we can go on to the,
Sure. So it appears as if the second page in each of the monthly packets then is represented by, this is going to give you the 2 pie charts. All right, so at the top, you've got department leave hours by month. So this is across the various leave categories based on how they're coded. So really, it's just kind of giving you a sense of when you're indicating we're absorbing it to accommodate for, this is leave that you can anticipate in any staffing scenario that you're going to have to accommodate for. And it just shows you the breakdown of those various categories for each individual given month and where that time is being leveraged. And so any questions about that top one or any discussion, I guess, that if you wanted to have about what
One
that gives?
clarification.
Yeah, I'm
Sorry.
so sorry. Yeah, go ahead.
Because when I read this, it says department leave. That means fire department.
Fire department. Yes, this entire thing is always
Okay.
going to be just
It wasn't
exclusively.
clear.
I'm so sorry. Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
I'd like to add too, if I can, with those numbers, those 37, when we're completely fully staffed, due to Kelly days, you automatically come on shift every day knowing you're going to be down 2 people. Because those Kelly days, we have at least 2, if sometimes not 3 people that are mandated by FLSA law to be off, or otherwise we're paying them overtime. So there's days that you start with 37 in theory, but 2 of them are gonna be off for Kelly days, and there's some days there's 3 or 4 off to Kelly days.
I have a question. So Kelly days, you're mandated to be off
Correct. Or you pay those folks to have the overtime.
because when we did our tours, a lot of them said, I'm working for so-and-so, so I'm working 2 days in a row.
So they do shift swaps, right? We allow shift swaps, which is allowable by law. And then, like I said, the Kelly days is part of the FLSA 27-day work cycle, 53-hour work week, 204 for the month that their overtime threshold goes towards. We can get way in the weeds on that, but I guess my point being that most every day when we start on shift, you're at least 35 people. It never is 37 because you always have to account for those Kelly days.
That they can work 2 days in a row, whether they either are swapping a shift or getting paid overtime.
They have that ability to, yes.
Okay.
Yes,
So a lot of the overtime is them working.
yes. If you see an overtime shift, like the pie chart indicates, that means somebody took the overtime because we were short-staffed.
Gotcha. Okay.
So you,
Yes, go
so you pay overtime when we're less than 29 staff.
Correct. Yes, sir.
That's the trigger.
Yes, sir.
Then you start asking people if they.
Yes, sir. We have an automatic callback system that's done systematically. So if you took overtime today and it was offered up again tomorrow, you'd be at the bottom of the list. We try to give everybody a fair opportunity to rotate through that opportunity to get overtime.
And with the recent federal legislation, is overtime tax-free?
I don't know enough to speak legislatively like that. I know there's been a lot of discussion about it. I do not know the answer to that, to speak legislatively about it.
Yeah, to a limit. So there's a limit on
Intelligence.
how much of it is. I think it's 15 or 25,000. That's tax free on
So
overtime
that
now.
goes more directly to the firefighter when he does work overtime, actually increase. Okay.
So I think that answers my question. So when you have, I saw a couple of months where you have heavy vacation months. That's how you cover is you have to pull overtime to cover those because, yeah, in July, what,
So what
40?
we do is we do vacation based off seniority. We call and ask folks, what do you want for vacation this year? We try to plan it out. But then you get the FMLA, you get the military leave, somebody leaves, whatever, and these folks have already got trips planned. You're not going to pull them back from vacation, right? That would kill morale. And obviously, if it drops us below because of an injury, an illness, or a family emergency, something like that, then yes, we pay the overtime.
Okay. And so then again, just below is then going to just represent the categories of that worked time broken down in terms of those overtime, really the overtime hours, and to give you a sense of the percentage of the overall work day and overtime for that given month. And then the next pie chart, so I guess that would be what, page 3, monthly general summary, just kind of a higher, less broken down, but within a single pie chart to give you a sense of the amount of hours being worked over the course of the month, percentages versus those leave hours for that month that are taken, any leave hours that are taken, and then as well the overtime percentage for that given month of the overall hours worked. And so that gives you the opportunity to be able to assess from month to month. And like you were mentioning, the higher vacation months, right? You're going to see a higher number there.
And so like what this pie chart will show is, if this represents everyone we have, well, some people are working, that's red. Some people are on leave, vacation, FMLA, whatever that is. And some people are working overtime. So this just captures the whole picture. So you have 81% of folks actually there. That's the scheduling ratio. So you only have 81% of folks. Plus you have 2.41% of overtime and 16% that are on some type of leave. So you can figure around 15 to 20% are on some type of leave. And so that's why you have to schedule in excess of your minimums. Mm-hmm. And then this data, this is the month of July that we're looking at, but this is just a repeat for every single month for 12 months.
This was helpful the way y'all kind of broke it down.
Wonderful. Good. Thank you.
Any other questions, comments?
Well, so we can go to the last page.
That's
Gotcha.
something that I put
Yeah,
together. So you might want to check the math on that because Val didn't check me on that.
So, well, and I guess it's a chief push question. What I mean, the high month is October and the low month is February.
for worked OT hours.
Yeah. How does October, is it just more fires or how did it get so high in overtime? Because that's not one of the vacation months.
Well, you have fall break.
Fall break.
Oh, is that what it is?
Yes, sir.
And so why would February be so low? It's cold, nobody goes anywhere?
Should be.
Could be. I would think there's more fires in the winter than there is in summer, but,
That's a short.
and it's the shortest month. But would fall break run up 1,000 hours of overtime?
I'd say easily, yes.
Oh, really?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
You know, my only comment, I think it's commendable. We opened Fire Station 7 and I don't think we've hired any new firefighters since then. It's pretty remarkable to me that FD has been able to manage that, with limited overtime hours. So I think this is a pat on the back for the fire department for being able to manage that. And we have requested, haven't we, Terry, 3? Have we heard anything on that?
The budget, we approved 3.
Right.
Have you heard anything on that? Do you have any idea of when we will hear?
No, I mean, hearing scuttlebutt about him pulling money out of FEMA and everywhere else, so I don't know, it may just be delaying the whole grant process, AFG and SAFER. So,
Well, I'll add to that, Eddie. I'm pretty impressed that the majority of our numbers are less than 2%
Yes,
for overtime. That's
yes.
a sign of good management to me.
I think you have to look at it that way.
I'd like to say something. I think it is. I think you're right, but I think the last page here is very good. It's kind of like, okay, so what do we do with that? And so I think we're talking all around. It's great that we're doing that, but we've spent $300,000 on overtime. And what do we need to do to lessen that dollar amount and put it in the right bucket by hiring new people?
That's what
Yeah.
today was just to go over the data.
That's what you're doing
And-
with this.
And the goal is, we've already approved 3. If they get the grant and if they don't, we're gonna have to revisit this.
Got it.
That's why I wanted to know if we had any type of time for, the money's already been approved.
Got it. Okay.
So we're waiting to hear on that, but this gave us a better picture, I think, a little bit of kind of what's happening. Anything else from anybody?
I just don't know, how do they feel about that many overtime hours? Do they like paying the overtime, or do they wish that there was more staff?
I mean, you asked the question,
I know.
I'm gonna be honest.
Okay, because I know when I was like, I loved overtime.
I
I hate
mean,
to lose it.
it depends on the person, right? And it takes its toll on them. Because you think about it, we're gone for 24 hours, or they're gone for 24 hours when they come in. If they get hit another 24 hours tomorrow, it's their choice if they want to work it or not. So that means they have 2 days now away from their families, childcare, whatever issues may be going on. We don't have any way of knowing that. They get 1 day off and they're back to work the next day. So the chance to recover mentally, physically, the whole 9 yards is reduced. And that takes its toll on people over time. I'm just going to be honest since you asked the question. And I think staffing plays a part into that. Now, I don't know what the magic number is. I know it's about dollar and cents. I never shy away from that. Yeah, I understand that. There's only certain things you can do. But it does eventually take its toll on staff. Matter of fact, it can push them towards using sick leave, not coming in on their days to work. It can do a lot of different things to them that we cannot control as far as administrators.
This is great information. Great.
I think it needs to be shared. Anybody else? Anything? All right, do I have a motion?
Motion to adjourn.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Hey, Chief Judge.